What's good, Shell? Trying to hear the most woke, no joke, and I'm back at again with a brand new video. And I'm gonna keep it a bold berry biscuit. This news really doesn't surprise me. It really doesn't. And before I get into all of that, before I get into what I really want to talk about, which isn't really this story, but really the bigger story of the NFL in general, throw up this tweet here from John Katzenstein, he's a writer for the Saints. He says, Mark Ingram has been suspended for the first 4 games of 2018 for violating the NFL's policy on performance-enhancing drugs. Now, there's a lot to break down here, and I'll get to what the most important thing to look at here is, but in a wider scale, but in a more condensed scale. What you have to understand, when you hear performance-enhancing drugs, your mind shouldn't go immediately to like HGH and like steroids, and in the sense that these guys are trying to bulk up and buff up. Now, I'm doing this a lot, but before I get into that, I want to remind you guys that this is Mark Ingram going into his 8th year in the league. He's in a contract year. So it makes a little bit of sense why he be going and looking for PEDs to make sure he gets the proper amount of help he can get to make sure he gets that money. Now, what I was going to say was, when you think about PEDs in the NFL, at least, you're not looking at like guys trying to bulk up, trying to get super big like in baseball, like in the MLB. What guys are doing in the NFL, we understand that the NFL is, as a sport itself, it's not a natural sport that the body is naturally supposed to be able to withstand. It's 200 to 300 pound dudes making high speed, high collision plays at each other every single play for 4 to 5 months out of the year. The body just can't withstand that kind of punishment year after year after year. So what these PEDs are doing, they're not to bulk them up. Well, these PEDs are to increase or to decrease the time it takes for your body to recover. So you want to speed up recovery so that you can train harder, faster, and more and longer than someone who's clean. And that's the real thing that these PEDs are doing for these players. It's not to get big. It's to make sure that they can always be on the field and recover from any and all of these knocks. Maybe it's not a major injury, but you definitely feel it. You definitely feel it after the end of the season. You wake up and you're in pain. That's why the league hands out all those painkillers, those painkillers like it's candy, like a PEDs dispenser. These guys are always in pain and they're always hurt, and you want to get through that. So that's where the PEDs come from. But the other thing I want to get into is, let's go and look at Mark Ingram's stats one time. Throw this up for me one time, man. So I want to get to this before I go to my bigger point. Look, he just came off of back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. 2016, 205 rushes for 1,000 yards. What was it? 6 touchdowns. That's great. That's what you want from your running back. That's what you want. And then last year, the 1-2 punch with Kamara, this man had 230 rushes for 1,124 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. No, I'm sorry, 12. Forgive me. 12 touchdowns on the ground. But what's I think is even more impressive is when you combine that with his receiving stats, which is he had, 58 receptions for 416 yards. Dude, this guy had 1,600 yards, about 1,500 yards in total yards from scrimmage last year. That's a lot of hits, bro. That's a lot of, what is that? 230 rushes, 58 receptions, quick maths here, that's 288 total plays, total touches on the ball, almost 300 total touches. That's going to you're going to feel that, bro. And he's 29, about to be 30 soon. Is he 29 exactly? He's 28. I'm sorry. Yeah, he's 28. But this guy, I mean, he's in a contract year. You want to make sure you're 100% in and your body is 100% ready to go in the season. So I understand that. But the big question I want to ask you guys is a bigger question toward the NFL in general, and that's just how many of these guys in the NFL do you honestly believe are 100% clean? Let's be real, because these tests, these PED tests, man, they're just like they're just like the marijuana test, the drug test, bro. It really is a dummy test. it really is just a dummy test. This man, not Alvin Kamara, this man Mark Ingram has never had a neck. He got into the NFL, he hasn't had a neck in the last few years, bro. And the thing is, these guys, it's such a dangerous sport, bro. And people get caught. It really is just a dummy test. Like, I honestly believe, I think it was Mark Schlereth. I don't know if it was when he was on ESPN, if he went on First Take, or if it was when he switched over to FS1 and he came on Undisputed and talked about it. But he said that the number of players who take PEDs for recovery is up to like 80%. He said 80%, but I think this is when he was on ESPN and he was trying to make the numbers seem a little bit more palatable because he doubled down and said maybe it was 60. Then he doubled down, not doubled down, but he backtracked and said it was 60. Then he backtracked again and said it was maybe 40%. You don't just go from 80 to 40%. I think it's higher than 80. And I think there's been a few interviews with players, and especially even players who like small time players who've been on practice squads and been like players who come on for a couple weeks who see the guys. There's people saying that these players, that there's a lot more than like 80. They're saying like up to like 85, 90% of players are in some way or other, maybe not on PEDs, like maybe not on steroids or HGH, but they're on something that these current tests can't detect, and to get an unfair advantage with body recovery. I'm not just talking about, just taking a supplement. There are supplements that are illegal in the NFL, but they're saying that people are doing wild things like the under the tongue stuff. I just want to know what percentage of players in the NFL do you honestly believe are 100% clean? The thing is, I don't even hate Mark Ingram. I respect the Saints. And if there's any Saints fans watching this, I know there's probably a few. Let's not let's not get disrespectful about the sweep last year, because we can talk about records over the past 6-7 years. We can yap about it. But it's y'all had your first good season since the Super Bowl. But this is more indicative. This is more really a bigger story of the NFL in general. Look, Thomas Davis Sr. just got popped for PEDs for, what was it? It was what kind of inhibitor? An estrogen blockers, estrogen inhibitors, which is basically the same thing as you only take those to cover up you taking steroids. Let's be honest, taking PEDs. Let's be honest. So I just think that there's a lot more players in the league who are doing this than they're getting found out. But this makes too much sense. 2 back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, a season where he just got 300 touches, and he's in a contract year. Of course, he wants to get any kind of advantage he can get for his contract. He just came off of 2 high collision, crazy years. I mean, look, this man, Mark Ingram, he started off, he came into the league, one of the biggest guys, one of the biggest names, and he didn't get into the best start of his career. He didn't get to the best start of his career. But now, he sees this, he has to make his money here. It is what it is, bro. And I think this is a much bigger issue than just a few guys every year. I think it's a huge issue in the NFL. And that's how the game is, honestly. But let me know what y'all think, man. What do y'all think about this situation, man? What do y'all think about Mark Ingram taking these PEDs? What do you think about the NFL in general taking PEDs? Do you think it's as high as I think it is? Do you think it's really high or actually just mad low? Let me know in the comments below, or let me know on my Twitter at Shellatron, same as the channel name, man. You already know, do that like button. I got a button right here to subscribe, button right here to watch more videos. Namaste. Back sooner than you think.